This episode is brought to you by Simple Funding LLC. For all of your pre-settlement funding needs, contact Simple Funding LLC to receive your money promptly. They're a customer-centric legal funding company that provides exceptional funding solutions at affordable rates. Simple Funding covers a diverse range of cases, including car accidents, slip and falls, worker compensation, medical malpractice, wrongful death, and more. They recognize that life goes on and you need to access your funds immediately, which is why they offer clients a swift and efficient process with minimal documentation requirements. For more information, visit simplefundingllc.com or contact them directly at 678-855-6232. Enjoy the show. And welcome back to another episode of True Stories from a Real Private Eye. I'm your host, Vinnie Coppola. With me, as always, is Lynn Lambdin, a real private investigator from Atlanta, Georgia. And once again, we have the great Ken Kraus back for another episode. Thank you so much for being here, Ken.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you for the invite.
So many people have emailed us and wanted to know more about this case. So that's why we have you back. Actually, you know what? That's bullshit. The reason we have you back is because last episode was our highest watched episode with the most downloads. But no, we're getting a lot of questions. People want to know more about this case. I got a couple of emails saying that this would make a great movie too. They agree that this would make a great, at least a Lifetime movie or something. I don't know. But thank you so much for being here, sir. Thank you.
So Vinny, what we're going to do in order to keep things straight in our minds is we're going to refer to the Black Widow, of course, as the Black Widow, because that's what she really is.
Right.
And we're going to refer to our client. We're going to refer to her either as C for client or client.
Okay.
And the ex-husband of the client, we're going to refer to him as the Mark, because he was the Mark of the Black Widow in this particular case.
Okay.
But we will refer to him as Mark 1 and any other victim that she tore up as Mark 2 or Mark 3, because she had several.
Right.
So Ken, as I was talking to you a little earlier this week after we recorded that episode, I told you we had a lot of questions, and you done some digging, and you got back to me, and you've told me some pretty interesting stuff. So I'll let you take it from there. So I'll let you start back from the Louisiana days.
Yeah, I went back to my sergeant, who's now a retired captain, and called him up and let him know, I was going to mention this case, et cetera, just a courtesy and friendship. And that, he said, "Oh my God, she's not back." And I go, "Oh no, man, no, she's not back." No, I said, "Yeah, he's packing his bags." No shit. I said, "No, but it was interesting," and told him what we had going on your podcast here. And I said, he says, "Everything fine. That's, there's nothing wrong with it." And I said, remember that at the time, a couple of weeks after, this was in the 1990s, late 90s, it was just barely a turn of the century. Anyway, when the case had broke, I had gotten like a 2-week school, and I went out to a CSI school. Anyway, when I came, in the meantime, the sergeant at the time was able to contact this U.S. Marshal that was involved in his case. And the marshal at that level was able to talk with the supervisor, and finally got the phone calls, and so they conversed for a while. And he told my sergeant at the time exactly the story and what had happened all the way through the back doors and what federal agencies were involved. And it floored me, because when I came back from the school, my sergeant sat down. He told me, he goes, "Here, let's go to lunch." And over an hour time at lunch, we sat and we talked. And that's what I'm going to give you now is basically how it came to be. Should we say the Black Widow got her web weaved up here in Atlanta from where she was.
Yeah.
So, right. It starts down in New Orleans area in Louisiana. And evidently the Black Widow was running around hanging out with a very prominent territorial type of biker group. Okay.
Wow.
Biker club. Yeah,
Yeah.
outlaw.
One that you would know, Vinny. One that everybody knows.
Yeah,
And we don't want to mention the name of that club. Is that
No.
correct?
no,
Okay.
there is. We do know the name and we know the players in it, but it was it's not one of your friendly ones,
Okay.
that you'd like.
We
But they're
don't want them throwing
predominantly,
fireballs at our house.
We don't want to have to get somebody to start our car in the morning. Is what you're saying.
yeah,
No.
and these
Yeah.
guys are be just the ones to do it too. Let me tell
Okay.
you.
Okay.
So anyway, they're very predominant in anywhere from the southeast part of the United States, almost all of Florida, all the way over as far as New Orleans, Nolans,
Okay.
right? Yeah, that's
Now.
stand corrected. Nolans, yeah. Anyway, so when she was hanging out with them, she learned a lot, about the biker club mentality and the behaviors and everything. And they basically, used her as for whatever they needed to use her for. But eventually, because she was, I guess, of her persona and the way she looked, she was a looker at the time, and she could just come out so convincingly and drop a line out of her mind because she was so sharp of a bullshit line or story that make you want to cock your head and say, "Oh, okay," you want to believe her, Now, if you had any reason to not believe her in something that she tells you, then of course you'd have to ask her more questions, follow up, and if she wasn't ready for it. But man, she could just turn her body language on, talk to you, look you right in the eye, and tell you something, and you wouldn't think twice about it. So with
Yeah.
that persona and character, she was they used her for cashing bad checks. Now you talk about the late '90s, maybe the turn of the centuries. Like I said, you didn't have all you didn't have all the high technology you have today for instant everywhere with the internet going out, and they could just run the check and right away. So with the different identities that they gave her and the fake checks, they were making money on the side without having to do guns or drugs or anything else in their repertoire. So eventually,
Wow.
she just changed. She was a redhead, a blonde. She was just about anything you could think of wherever she went. And they finally eventually, when two things, they they got the attention, I think, of the FBI because they were crossing state lines a lot. Okay, they also wrote bad checks to besides banks, post offices, and other people that have contracts with the government. All right, and because they got to a threshold. Usually, when you're dealing with the feds, you get to a threshold of $100,000, $200,000. They start getting interested in you. Plus, also, there's a political point: is that if you burn the certain type of people that have contacts with the feds, they pick up the phone. They come looking for you. So
Right.
they were on a lookout for her, and eventually, from what I understand now, they got stopped, and it was the New Orleans police that had picked her up and found all these different identification pieces of ID on them, and the different names and fake and different pictures and things like that are, and a bunch of fraudulent checks, bank check that didn't have an account or a correct routing number. Anyway, the cops were smart enough when they looked at it to say, hey, what's all this right here? And when she got cornered with that, instantly again she pops out with, well, I'm in the witness protection program, the WIP program, run by the marshals. That's why she says you can't. Excuse me. you can't. You can't let anybody know who I am or my real name or anything like that. And
And that was bullshit, right? And that was
that was all
bullshit,
bullshit.
right?
That was
Yeah.
bullshit. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it was instant bullshit that she was
Yeah.
aware of, or how many people would think of it that quick.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Wow.
people just shit themselves and say, "No, okay, hell, you got me. Take me," or they just clam up and wait for their lawyer to give them advice. She was right out
Right.
there, Johnny, on the spot. So she
Wow.
was able to give them a bullshit story, but they took her into custody anyway, and she stuck with that story and elaborated on it. So eventually, when the I guess the detective CID part of New Orleans PD were looking at it and say, hey, if she's telling the truth, maybe we just might not push this, because what we got right now, we don't have a violent crime, we don't have drugs or anything like that. So let's just it's financial identity stuff, which a lot of times detectives and people just you don't want to do it because it's just such a pain in the ass paperwork. You might as well work in a library. It really is. That's you're gonna live in a computer when you're doing that crap.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But
so,
at this point, Ken, hadn't she wrote checks in Alabama and Florida also?
multi states, yeah. I mean, I can't
Yeah.
verify, but it would have to be Mississippi, both sides of Louisiana, and in Florida. So the whole,
Yeah.
wherever that biker club would travel, being, the nomadic type of, industrial folks that they are, you figure it's going to be all. And that area down there is a very fast pace when you get down to the places where they started building casinos, and it's a resort area everywhere. Panama City Beach, all that whole coastline area. It's fun. People are out there for fun, and they don't push it too much. So anyway, so I guess they called. They contacted the marshal's office at Mobile, Alabama, where it was maybe. And of course, nobody. You just don't call up on phones and, hey, I got somebody down here who says from the WHIP program, because even the marshals, there's a very, very extremely restricted access to who is in the witness protection program. It's not just your ex-mafia guys, and it's a lot of people that work for the government that don't need to be known, along with their families.
Right.
It's very
Right.
restricted. It's not even on the internet or online. You can't hack it. It's it's very, very, again, very restricted and very highly classified. For you to get
So this,
hold of the
yeah. So the
information
marshals,
in there,
right? So the marshals would immediately assume, just right off the bat, that this person who's calling to find out about somebody in the witness protection program may be actually looking for them. So that's why they're very, very careful. Is that correct?
That's
Yeah.
a good assumption, Vinny. Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. It's
Yeah.
very logical. So
Yeah.
they're thinking. So they're thinking. They say, "Hey, does anybody know who this person is? Whatever's going on?" I said, "No, we don't know nothing about her." I said, "So they go to their specialized unit inside the marshal's office, and they're going to say, we'll check on it, but only we are the only ones that know how to check on it." So they walk in. They go, "Nope, her real name, her fake name, none of her aliases, none of that stuff was in there." And so they come back and they go, "Sorry, we don't know." Well, why don't we go down there and New Orleans PD might not be getting it right. You never know what's going on. And she's still sitting down there. So evidently they send a marshal or two down there to sit and talk, chat with her and see what's going on. And supposedly she came clean and said, "No, I lied, and I said, they caught me with this." And she gave them the truth. So she mixes the lies with the truth. I mean, sometimes it's so hard to sift through, what's going on.
Yeah.
So they were saying, well, this in yourself is a chargeable offense, et cetera, et cetera. And she goes, "Oh, wait. Look, I hang out with this biker club, and I know so-and-so and such. I'd ride with him." And she knew the person's names. She knew that some of these guys that were wanted by several different agencies, for different crimes, but they just couldn't put their hands on them. These guys never stayed, too long in any one area. And there was a at the time they were doing some work or transportation or protection for drugs. At the time, a lot of cocaine coming in from El Chapo, Guzman, out there in Mexico. So they were highly connected. And since the marshals don't do dope, they said, well, there's not a whole lot we can do, with dope and shit like that. She goes, well, maybe the DEA can use it. When she named the names of the people that, I don't know if they were the president or whatever chapter the hierarchy is in motorcycle clubs.
So she's
But
basically
evidently,
ratting. She's ratting these. She's basically ratting these guys
she'll
out.
use you like she'll use
Yeah.
you.
And see, this is why it's important that we do not give any names out
Right.
of the club that she was riding with, or
Right.
or her name or anybody else's name, because this could get somebody killed.
Oh, absolutely. I'm surprised
Yeah.
it hasn't.
Right. So
Maybe
this
she gave the names up. Maybe I don't know the names. I mean, these are the facts that I'm getting, but the actual down and dirty details were only going to be known to the people in that room, that conversation,
Right.
God and the devil.
Right.
They're the only players in this one,
Right.
Anyway, so so they say, well,
She's
maybe
playing.
the
She's
DEA
playing. She's playing a risky game with this. Sorry to interrupt you. She's playing like a
that's
risk.
part of the excitement to her. It's a
Wow.
mental orgy to her. It really is. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so she's feeling good about it. She goes, "I'm playing him, playing the PD, playing everybody," and she's just planning, a backdoor and escape route. So they say, "Oh, okay." So the marshals say, what do we got on her? What can we do? We don't do dope. The marshal's office don't do dope per se. And so they call up their contacts in DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration, and say, "Hey, we got a such and such, and here's what we got." And she says she knows this person, that person, in this motorcycle club, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and gave just enough pertinent information that probably got somebody over there interested enough to say, maybe we'll come down and check it out and give her a talk. And the marshals were just glad enough to get rid of her. You say, good. Get rid of this flaming turd. Nobody wants to hold this one.
Yeah.
So they turned her over to DEA for a short time. Now, I don't know the time frame in between, if it takes a week to get her, which she came up to where the DEA office is, we don't know. Or DEA guys went down to see her, we don't know.
But meanwhile, she's in the Louisiana jail just sitting there.
That's where they initially kept her, yes. Now, where these conversations and interviews and interrogations actually transpired, my sergeant either didn't ask, didn't care, or didn't remember. But they did happen. They did go on. They are established. Yeah. So they contact the guys up in the DEA, and they do the same thing. They go, okay, let's go check this out, because she's got just enough colorful, factual information about this club and the names of the guys they want. Okay, if they could pin it on, whoever their mark is, then fine, boom. So they give her a shot, and again, she tells them everything that she knows. And I think at that point, my speculation here is that there's her chance to come clean and give them every detail, everything she could, because if she could help them out, they put in a good word for her, and New Orleans PD would probably just drop the paper trail case on her, But anyway, when she gave up what she did, now they're going to do a lot of vetting. And what I mean by vetting, if they're going to use her as a confidential informant or, whatever, they're going to go all the way back to your birth certificate and get DNA off the damn thing. I'm telling you, they're not going to do anything to risk their money, the time, and the resources. So however they do that, it's I know it is from my law enforcement experience, it's a pain in the ass. And I'm telling you what, there's a lot of filters you got to go through. And if you don't jump through the hoops, and if you don't answer everything just perfectly, they're not going to be able to use you, or they won't. You know what I mean? And that's what she's rolling dice with here. So she had to give up just about everything she knew. And so when they went to check out, does this motorcycle club exist? Does this guy ride with them? How often? When's the last time we've seen him? Do we know that that they sometimes go to Arizona, or do they have a house down here? Things like that. Oh yeah, this guy bought a boat, or whatever, and they are following this guy. Well, it just so happens when DEA starts checking on them, the alcohol, tobacco, firearms, the ATF guys come in, and they have a little sit down, come to Jesus meeting with the DEA, and said, and this is very important, specifically from what Lynn just said, the warning came, back off. We have the operation running. Basically, they've had a deep undercover, hardcore ATF agent in this club for years.
Wow.
Worked his way in, supposedly worked his way in from being a prospect or being, just a drunk, and boom, coming in. And now he's in a position where he's basically just date and time and recording everything they ever do. It's going to get eventually to a point where they have all the players and they have enough to bury them hard. We don't have to go any farther, and then set them up. So as soon as the DEA finds that out, they back off. They go, oh yeah, you don't get one crossing over into the other's jurisdiction, or the DEA says, well, this has to do with just more than dope, more than tobacco, firearms, big time. So when they found that out, they backed off and said, now she didn't know that. Our Black Widow didn't know that. She probably met the guy. She probably could pick him out in the lineup, but never knew. Yeah. Of course not. I mean, that's logic. But didn't suspect him at all. So when the DEA finds out they already got somebody in there, and they're not going to be able to get their hands on anybody that's ever going to go down in that club is going to go down via ATF probably. Okay,
makes sense.
And
yes.
So they come back and they say, "Oh, sorry, honey, and this is no good. We can't use you." I'm sure they didn't tell her why. But you're a poison pill. You're nothing we can swallow or use. So arrivederci. Gotta get the fuck out of here. So they pack her shit and they send her back. Get called back to marshals. And they go, here you go. You had her last. They go, well, what are we gonna do? We have no charges on her or anything. So now she's sitting there and now she's panicking. I'm sure she's panicking by going, I've blown all my fucking cards. I've got nothing to offer. She does have one more thing to offer her. Oh, so no. Anyway, I guess according to protocol, maybe suspicion, whatever it takes, but the professionalism of the marshals, when they went to take her back and they were going to close your interview. Close your interview is you're going to close the case, et cetera, et cetera. Don't do this again. Smack him on the wrist, whatever. And then we're going to dump her shit back over in the New Orleans PD. Well, while they're talking to her, she's offers this U.S. Marshal, all right, sexual favors.
Oh
The
my
famous
God.
last straw that breaks the breaks the back, and they were smart enough, is what I said, is that they called it, or maybe they just got lucky enough. I don't know. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, not to have interviewed her at a police department or a federal building or anything like that. Didn't call her in there. They had taken custody of her and had gone somewhere. I don't know, but it's something like a side office or a motel or something, where I guess made her feel like she could spill the beans and give them anything she wanted. But in other words, if you'd have brought her into a police department, she'd have known the place was wired, or a jail or something like that. She'd have clammed up and said, fuck you, I'll just take my medicine. But basically, whatever it came, and maybe they coerced her a little bit, I don't know. But she was able to let them know, like, here's come get your Christmas, presents from under the, Christmas tree. And from what I understand, it was very specific and very wild and crazy. And that's her forte when it comes to, sexual interludes, is that it's ACDC, XYZ, whatever you want to pay for, she'll make it happen. I mean, it's any kind of noise and all your toys, bring them. Yeah, that's it. So anyway, when she gets turned down, she goes, no, none of that bullshit, and he gets turned down. It's all wired, it's all tape. And so that's the
wait. I'm sorry, Ken. So the proposition is on tape, and the refusal is on tape. Is what you just is that what you just said?
The whole interview is on tape. Yeah.
Okay.
Here's your coffee. Here's your lunch. Let's have a talk.
Okay.
Yeah, they
and
have
she doesn't like to be turned down. She gets angry.
Her ego gets burned because when they said, okay, here's your warm and fuzzy little sit down chat, you're useless, you're a poison pill, nothing we can do with you, bafangu, you're going back to New Orleans PD, and we don't care if they charge you or let you free, we don't give a fuck, But I mean, something just bugged the shit out of her, is that now she's got to go back and face the deal with New Orleans after being tossed around and everybody's turning her down, and she doesn't even know why. Well, what she does is when they take her back to New Orleans, she files a criminal complaint against the United States Marshal for sexual assault, sexual battery, sexual harassment. And, like he touched me and yeah. They got the thing videoed. They got a freaking tape on the damn thing. That's the one time when she just overplayed her cards and she was, I'd say, desperate. And when she said that, and they filed the complaint, now New Orleans gets it. They have to run with it. You know what I mean? Because she's playing the victim, and oh my God, he raped me and sodomized me, and oh my God, wah. And, they go, oh my God, did this really happen? Because she came in, she was handed over to several agencies to come back. So could it have happened? We don't know. But the point is, you just can't throw it under the rug because it's going to keep going up higher up the chain of command. You have to go through this professionally and, take it like they did.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Can I say something real quick? I got to tell you, this woman, I agree with both of you. She's a nut job. She's poison. She weaves her web. She's causing a lot of damage. But there's a little part of me that kind of is impressed with the hustle. I'm kind of impressed with. I mean, she's got she's out of cards. Wait a minute, I got one more.
Vinnie, there was no quit. They were absolutely no quit in this woman.
I'm impressed with it a little bit with this hustle of this woman. Anyway, sorry, Ken.
I get it. So I guess she gets sent back to PD, NOPD. And where she spills all the beans, and she figures, I'll just create. Again, she did it, but for the reasons and the details, I guess in her twisted mind, if she could bring this to bear, then she's going to trade dropping the case for and you don't have a federal case or anything like that. All you got is New Orleans. She didn't know it was taped and videoed, so they had her by the short hairs. Of course, she probably shaved, so it doesn't fucking matter. My point being is that. New Orleans just, for the most part, said, okay, fine. they went in there. Whatever they do to get these internal affairs and these type of cases, they walked in. They showed whoever they show at the time, Office of Personnel Management or whatever. I don't know, but the people that investigate the feds for wrongdoings went in there, looked at everything. Then they go, no, it ain't happening. It ain't right.
Yeah.
But before they had said that, they called her in, Office of Personnel Management. I think that's what it comes under. And they said, hey, we're here. We're from the government. We're here to help you. Tell me what happened and how it went on. And supposedly it was very detailed. You to read this like it was 50 Shades of Gray, the way she wrote it, from what I understand. And she went on and on and on. She was like this, as if it had already been a romantic sexual interlude between her and somebody else. So she might have been playing that of a real sexual interlude that she had out, just putting the
make it seem more genuine. Yeah.
Absolutely, and believable, so that she thinks she believes it. So anyway, I said, okay, is that the case?
She was very believable when she told the story. She was very believable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And she had the personality that you wanted to believe her, even if it was fantastic. I said, damn. So anyway, they type up I guess they typed up an interview list, and here's what happened, correct it where you want. So they're letting her believe her own bullshit, to where this thing looks like these guys are going to go after the marshals when she, okay, now she swears to it, et cetera, et cetera. Now you're in trouble. Now you're in shit city, because you just it's going to come under perjury, but it's going to come under false swearing against a federal agent. She done shit the bed. She was there. So when she found that out, it was just, it exonerated the marshal by a long stretch of imagination. He was never even really under suspicion for this. It's just that there's protocols and policies, procedures you got to clear everything, make it out in the open, and make it clear and transparent. So there's no questions asked. So the whole time they're putting their case together. It takes about a week or so, whatever. They got to take it to the AUSA. Anyway,
What's that? What's that stand for?
That's the Attorney General.
Oh, okay.
Federal attorney, the assistant attorney general, and she's the one that has to prosecute those cases in that district. So while they're fiddle fucking around with that, she's still sitting in jail with no charges whatsoever. They don't know what to do with her. So for whatever snafu it comes in, the marshals didn't put a retainer on her to hold her. Okay, they're still fiddle fucking around with what they want to do and how they want to do it, and they didn't even had time long enough to put all the evidence together and start a case on her. So my speculation was that they said, okay, we're going to open the case back up on this one, and go get the files again, go get all the shit from the evidence. What do we really got? Well, we turned it over to the Fed. She's gone. We don't know. We just kind of fucking dumped her off on those guys. So in the meantime, she gets a bond. She goes for a bond hearing. She gets a bond. Boom, she's gone. She jumps bail. So she, what they call bush bond.
Yeah.
And she's out. She's out. So she went running back to her biker club, and the last time they saw anything of her, of any of her real name that she could use, because she didn't have any evidence. She's got no IDs. She was down in Florida, and when I did my tracking on her, I had tracked her with her name and numbers to places, trailer parks, strip clubs that she probably working in. I don't know, in Florida. And then I don't know what brought her up or how she got up to Atlanta, except that right about the time we had 96, we had the Olympics coming, and we had the Super Bowl here. So there was a lot of opportunity, what we call target-rich environment for people like her. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it brought her up here somehow, and that's where she ran into your client's happily married husband.
The mark.
Yeah. Wow,
Yeah.
That's how she gets in our backyard in Atlanta, and the rest is up to you guys when she starts her.
Well, that's where Lynn. That's where Lynn. That's where you started the story in K7. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, she falsifies a police report in Ken's jurisdiction, and I was brought in by our client, and this police report was laid in front of me, and I picked this police report apart, and she told the PD that she was in school when this happened, when her house got broken into, and she said all these other things. And I went to the school that she said she was in. They go, well, she's not been registered here in 2 semesters. So I got documentation of all this. I took everything in a nice little folder. I went over to the PD and I said, I'd like to speak to the detective working this. And they introduced me to Ken. And I walked back to Ken's desk and sit down. And I said, Ken said, how can I help you? And I laid everything out on his desk. And he goes, well, I'll have to take a look at this and see what's going on. And about 3 or 4 days later, I got a phone call from Ken. And Ken said, yeah, she falsified a police report. And I'm going to have to put her under arrest for falsifying a police report.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to serve her with a subpoena to get for the divorce case, to come in to testify about what her and the Mark had been doing. And when I went to the house that had supposedly been broken into, there was a parole officer's card on the door. Well, I turned that information over to Ken, and that's how Ken learned about all this background.
Yeah.
That's
This woman, man.
Yeah, and
I admire the hustle of this woman. I know she's poison. I know she's evil. But
Well, I called her in. I called her in to verify the report after I talked with Lynn. Okay, and basic things I wanted to give her enough rope to hang herself, or for the most part, come clean with things that she might have forgotten about, or she'd like to upgrade and make it a little more clear. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
Anyway, she's brazen as hell. I'd be glad to come in and sit down and talk about it. And she did. She came in the office, dressed to the nines, looking nice. And that's really the first time I had talked to her. I had read the report, and I said, well, there's things in here that I just don't understand, the forced entry, things you go through, on a burglary, and then things that are missing. There's not specific details. Because what happens with that stuff, gentlemen, is that a lot of people times they see it on television, they can pad that report for insurance purposes. So you come home and you find out you look at your house and it's tossed over and it's obvious somebody been in here ransacking a place. You're going to look through and you're going to notice important things that are missing, and you're not going to get everything all at once. Okay,
right.
So in that police report to the officer at the time, you might say, I got 8-10 items missing, but then the next couple of days after you clean everything up, you're going to notice more stuff missing or broken or damaged. Okay. And the same thing works the other way, is that with insurance companies, they'll call in on a burglary case that you're working, and these people say, oh, I forgot to add this. I forgot to add that. I said, that's fine. It really doesn't mean a whole lot to us. We like the specifics of something, especially if it's a unique item or if it's got a serial number on it or something like that, a weapon or something that we can track and we can put back to that crime scene. Everything else, jewelry and things like that, that's something more that you find is padded for the insurance purposes to make money in that way. So we talk with these adjusters back and forth. I already know what's going to be coming down the pike with that, and I play her with that about what specifically was missing and whatnot. And when I was finished, talking with her, give her my card, and out she goes, just to get a feel for her and just see how she articulates stuff. The other thing is I called in the officer that was taking the report, and I looked at some of the crime scene pictures that he had taken, and it looked exactly like a little dog had gotten upset and depressed when their owner left them and just tore the place up. I've seen burglaries, because in burglaries they come in, they know what they're looking for the most part, and they'll flip a bed, they'll flip places where normal people hide stuff, and they look for it. Okay, a lot of the professional ones, we don't get much in Roswell, thank God. Or they'll case a joint, they'll come in, they probably won't even kick a door, they'll pick a lock, or they'll find a way to get in with a window or something, they'll jimmy it, they'll get in, they'll know what they're looking for, they'll circumvent any type of alarm system you have. And back then, those days, it was everybody was on a hard line that had not AT&T, but a landline, and that's what was your backup, to your alarm systems. You cut that, and for the most part, you don't have an alarm. So
Right.
anyway, you get into the things that just weren't right about the burglary. So especially when I'm looking at the crime scene photos, and I said, they didn't tear out the drawers. These guys will pull the drawers all the way out and just flip them upside down and go through them because they don't want to be in there more than a few minutes. They want to grab and go. So it wasn't that way. It looked like somebody opened a drawer, took out the panties and threw them in the air, and they knocked over this, they knocked over that, and it just didn't. It did not look like a normal burglary. Okay, it looked like somebody was more pissed off and drunk than anything else.
Yeah.
And when asked, I went over to the house and I looked at it, no forced entry whatsoever. Of course, this is almost a week later, but there was no pry marks or anything like that whatsoever. So I already had my suspicions up about what was going on. But her case was against your client, was that your client had come in and broken in. Remember, Lynn?
Yep.
And that the client had done this because she found out that the Black Widow and the Mark were having, or they were doing the mattress mambo kind of dance over there together. And with that, so she had motivation now, okay, to put that on your client. So why? And I'm thinking, why would this client now want to? She didn't. What's she going to go in to steal you? Your panties, your bras? I mean, your sex toys? I mean, and when we talked with your client, she's like Mother Teresa. Remember her? She couldn't have done this if she tried. It was
no, she was a sweet lady. There was no way that the client would have done this.
Now, does that mean she doesn't get a wicked streak in her and pay somebody to do it? Sure. But what was she in there looking? And when I talked to her, what would she have been looking for? And that's it. She had no motivation. There wasn't anything in the Black Widow's contents in that place, nothing that, that would have done it. So we got the motivation to here. We got the inkling of, I'm talking with my sergeant. I'm going, why is this and this not going the right way? And this one looks like it's this over here. So these are some of the probable cause things that wanted me to get off of your client as being the perpetrator and ended up being, a tertiary or secondary victim in the case.
And one of the things that was very telling is one of the items that was listed as stolen. The first time that I went over to the house to try to figure out what was going on, the one of the items that was listed was stolen was sitting within view of the window. So I took a picture of it. Nice. And that kind of gave everything away. That's when we started putting everything together.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got the information that we needed for probable cause to close the case. And when I talked with your boss at the time, I figured out, well, you could not convince me that the client had anything to do with this. And the motivation and the lying and what's missing in a real burglary, in a real report, was the motivation coming from, the Black Widow. So with that, to close this case and make it go away, we took the warrant. And but we didn't go. We're looking for her, like I said on the last one. We didn't want to go looking for her because she had different areas. She didn't just live in that one house. She also had a condo that the Mark paid for because she was just too good to sit her ass in an apartment anywhere. She wanted a condo. So we didn't want to be going knocking on the door with uniform, to present the warrant, because if her or anybody around her seen us, then, she'd be on the lam again. She's gone. We wanted her. So
and she was on the lam when she was here.
Oh, yeah.
She was on the lam from New Orleans. She was actually hiding from the New Orleans police here.
And the bail bondsman. There was bail bondsman. They just didn't want to go out of state for her, I guess. I don't know. They're lazy, but she didn't have that much of a bond on her for the most part. I forget how much it was. But they
digging herself another hole.
And then she came after Ken and I and the attorney. Then she tried to have us arrested on some. She said that we violated her rights by arresting her on this falsifying a police report because we knew that it would get her federal probation revoked, which wasn't even true because she wasn't on federal probation at this time. She was on the run.
Yeah.
And then she sued us in federal court, which within about 60 days, the judge threw it out anyway. So,
yeah, because we called her in. She was all happy to come back in again. And like I said, we sat down. We told her what was going on. We even remember giving her a cup of coffee. And, she's done her coffee. It said, stand up, you're under arrest. Click, click. And over she went to the jail. And she couldn't understand what was going on. I was just so happy to be done with that shit,
Yeah.
And,
Bet.
yeah. So, about a week later or something, I get about a week later, within a week, 10 days, my sergeant says, hey, chief wants to talk to us. I said, about what? And he'd go, you know who? And he mentioned it, and I said, oh, shit. Well, what the hell? Well, she had her attorney, this new attorney, and was I forget.
Yes.
His name, I think he had an Italian last name. But anyway, he had taken her case, and I guess she had no money. I guess, yeah, she was paying him by the inch or something. I don't know. What the hell? He takes the case and he files an internal affairs complaint on myself and my sergeant for whatever it was back then, and conduct unbecoming. I don't know. But anyway, it wasn't assault or anything like she pulled with the marshals. That wasn't going to go anywhere. But this one here was just, he knows that there's a complaint that comes in. And since we were accredited police department, most of our complaints of any certain level has to go to IA. So, which is bad because it puts, at least for 90 days, you got a letter that you're under IA investigation, in your letter, even though it lasts one day or a month, they keep it for 90 days and it's pulled. So it's just harassment. He had nothing to sue me or the department over. We acted according to what we knew, and the charges were good. They stuck, and we bound her over down to Fulton County because one, we knew we weren't going to go after this anything. I mean, it was going to be gone. As soon as we found out, as soon as we notified the marshals, she had to go to the county anyway to be transferred out. That's the only way that's going to happen, is that they'll extradite her, but it's got to be from a county jail. So she's going to go down there anyway. So we parked her down there, and I basically no-leaded the case. Once I found out we got a call that she's in custody with the marshals, I went, we'll never see her again, thank God.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I thought that was the end of it until they called me in, and we went over with the case like we just did here, and the internal affairs officer said, it's bullshit, but, we just got to, go through the steps. So I was eventually cleared, so was the sergeant. But just on her swinging her ass out the door, she took one more fuck you. And that's her style, man.
Yeah. But you knew that she was never going to be charged in the city because they wanted her in New Orleans, they wanted her in Florida, they wanted her in Alabama, and in Mississippi. So by the time she would have got back to the city here in Roswell, hell, it would have been 10 years.
I'm not wasting time and ink on her, bud. I'm not wasting time and ink on her.
Yeah.
That's it. We send the package down there. Our package didn't get down there for about another month later when I had nothing else to do. And she was already been transferred, back to custody, remanded back to federal custody. And it gets downtown, and they found out that, in front of the grand jury, they don't even indict the case. It gets no load, and, said, okay, that's fine. Keep her down south.
Ken, that
happened to her.
That when she got out of jail, we got a call, or the attorney that represented our client in this, that you and I had this ordeal with, got a call from her wanting us to represent her in a case.
What?
Yes. Yeah. Where I don't remember,
I said, what a set of balls she had, but we know better.
I almost said that. What balls?
Yeah. But she wanted us to represent her in a case of, it wasn't a divorce case, but it was some kind of case that she wanted us to represent her in.
Hey, Lynn, see that crucifix you see the crucifix on the wall behind me?
Yeah.
That's the weapon you're going to need anytime you ever talk to her in the future. Trust me.
Exactly.
Oh, holy water.
Yeah.
We said no. We laughed about it. We said, there ain't no way. There's not enough money.
Yeah. She probably had some ulterior motive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
What would
wouldn't
she have
put
been
it.
thinking?
I wouldn't put it
Who
past her to have
knows?
some kind of ulterior motive, some kind of
She
back
has no
plan.
shame.
Yeah,
She has
yeah.
no shame whatsoever. So,
Unbelievable.
Oh
and I'll
no,
Unbelievable.
tell you,
no,
yeah,
no.
she looked you right in the eye. She'll look you right in the eyes. And go, yeah, I lied. I'm good at lying,
Yeah.
ain't I? I'm a good liar. She's proud
Yeah,
Yeah.
of
yeah,
it. I mean,
yeah,
Oh yeah, she was horrible to deal with. I wouldn't. I'd trust a snake before I'd trust her.
yeah.
oh, man, I tell you, a
Wow.
two-headed snake.
What a character. What a character for a film, man. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah,
just
but
unbelievable. Yeah.
you could make this, you know,
Yeah. We're gonna do yours first though,
a
Ken.
mini
We're gonna do
series of
yours.
an hour long,
Yeah.
hour,
Oh, yeah,
probably
yeah,
5 or 6 episodes, about an hour, 45 minutes long. And
yeah.
it would be fun because each episode could be a different agency that she was trying to shit on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a good idea. This week it's the ATF. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, I have a few questions transitioning out of this crazy woman back to your time in the military. That after we talked last week, just some questions that had come to my mind. You you made a couple of comments that kind of haunted me. One was, as you said, that when they were you were staring down the barrel of this shotgun and you stared at the bead on the barrel.
Yeah.
That is one of the most haunting pictures that you painted, and that picture alone haunts me. I can't imagine.
Well, let me add to that nightmare, okay, that I have seen 100 times in the last 46 years. Is that once we had this, we knew we're gonna surrender, okay, and when the last of the American hostages, or say the ones that were there, the non-combatants, when they were free and gotten out and down the alleyway off the embassy compound, we started destroying everything we had. Okay, we told the guys on the other side that, all right, give us 2 minutes and we'll unbarricade the doors and whatever. In the meantime, we were destroying everything we could, breaking the radios, getting everything we could, making it useless for them, taking the shotguns, breaking them down, getting rid of, opening up all the ammo, the shells so they couldn't be used. Sticking them in ice cream, in the restaurant, they had the big tubs of ice cream, sticking them in there and covering them over so you wouldn't know they were in there. Just anything we do to make it, because we only had like 2-3 minutes, so we had to go with it. I remember taking it was an Remington 870P for police shotgun, and it's a 12 gauge, 8 rounds,
Yep.
and you have a folding stock, so you can extend the stock. But when it's folded, if you're not used to weapons, it's weird looking like a machine gun or something. A lot of people would say, well, what is that? I said, look, and you show them, you just open up the stock, and it's nothing to be worried about. But they had taken, I had taken it, and I had beat the Jesus out of the bent end of that, so that the barrel itself was disfigured. Okay, and if you can see it like that, yeah, it was bent.
Yeah.
And I remember that you bent it, and it kind of bent over the little bead at the very top of it. I looked at it, I go, yeah, that's good enough. We piled everything. Two of the Marines had taken off their flak jacket at the time. I still had mine on for the most part. That's one of those miracles I was talking about. Anyway, so when they started, busting through the door, and it's funny as you say that, because fast forward about 5 minutes, when they get in there and they start pummeling the shit out of us, they knocked me down. They hit me in the side of the ribs and cracked a couple of ribs, and I fell on the floor. They put the boots to me, whatever. So I'm laying there all beat up, and that's when he grabs that shotgun. He was finger fucking that thing and fumbling around. You have to know where on the weapon, on the slide, there's a slide release. You have to know where that is, because it's locked forward to get around in the chamber. But he found a round on the floor or something like that. I don't know. Next thing I know is I see him finger fucking this thing, and I'm looking at it and I go, good luck with that one, They're trying to find how that operates. But then all of a sudden, surprised me, he slides it open. I went, shit, you lucky bastard, you. But then when I seen him put a shell inside, and like everybody says, even in Hollywood, when you hear that round chambered, it gets your attention. There's very few sounds in the world that are like that. And he's only standing about 20 feet away. And he turns, and and that's when come into what you're saying, Lynn. When he He's holding it now. It's not in his shoulder because it's folded. The stock is folded forward. He's holding it just by the pistol grip. So he's got a shotgun holding it like a pistol. So it's going to kick like a mule, motherfucker. And anyway, so he's looking at it and he's turning it sideways this way, and he's trying to look at the bead that's been bent on the shotgun. And I'm looking at him. He's looking at me, looking at him, and he's trying to eyeball that and get it where he thinks his eye and his finger is going to line up. And that's when you're saying, I looked at it. There was only 3 shotguns there, mine and the 2 other Marines. I look at it and I went, that's my fucking shotgun. That's my goddamn motherfucking shotgun. I'm going to shot my own fucking shotgun. Doesn't that piss you off, motherfucker?
Yeah.
Anyway, so what you're saying is a nightmare. I'm looking at my own friggin' shotgun. I'm saying, what the fuck's going to happen? And that's when that voice in the book, when I'm saying, Ken, he's going to shoot you. I don't know if it was me talking to me or my dad when I talk about my dad talking to me in the book. I said, he's going to shoot you. And they said, you're going to get shot with your own fucking shot. Bam! That's what I remember.
Yeah, but the fact
that shotgun, man, I'm telling you, you see that little nib on the end of it? Last thing I saw before I rolled over and that blast hit me.
Yeah.
You saw it coming, man. You saw it coming. When he put his finger on that trigger, I knew he was going to pull it. And at that range, he can't miss. I'm going to get hit. Yeah. I'm just glad it wasn't a pumpkin ball or a slug. It had been a slug. I'm sure the whole front of the barrel would have exploded. Maybe it would have killed him too. But
So you made a comment about when you got mail over at the PD, and it was from a grandchild of a person whose life you saved. That is a touching moment in your life to hear you tell that story.
It was one of many.
Oh, I'm sure it was one of many
that happened. Yeah, because when I had retired or gotten out of the Marine Corps, I had moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I worked for the Department of Energy and working with them in New Mexico, and then transferring to Nevada, out in the test site there, and then back into Rocky Flats where the nukes are made in Colorado. I traveled a bit, and some of my clearances and stuff, it wasn't easy to find me because of the internet and stuff wasn't, up and where you just punch in, you can find anybody nowadays. So it was kind of difficult to find me, but some people did. Now, they sent cards and letters and things like that, and thank you, happy birthdays and stuff. They didn't always get me. I don't remember anybody specifically in the last 40 years that they got to me on time. I mean, it might be January, and a Christmas card might have got forwarded from Albuquerque, New Mexico, to where I was in Tonopah, Nevada, or something. But eventually, it got to me, and you open it up, and I still have some of these. I know if anybody wants to call bullshit on it, I still have them. They were sent to me, and then some were even sent to my Lansdale address in Pennsylvania, where my mom was. So I still have those as a keepsake from her. So when the kid had turned 16 years old, and I guess it was he wasn't born yet, of course, in 1979, and I don't remember who she was, and the names don't correlate together. So, but he had basically said, thank you, Officer Kraus, and he knew I was at least a federal officer at the time. Had you not done this, and this, I would have never known my grandma. I wouldn't have been born. And, I had a happy, 16 years with her, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're right. Whenever I talk about stuff like that, it tears me up. And it's the one unselfish thing that I can say. If I have to stand at the pearly gates to bargain my way in, I'm going to use those 20 lives, for, those attaboys to get me over my oh shits.
Well, there's a radio host here. It says that Marines don't go to heaven; they guard the gates.
Nice.
Yeah, we need a break. We need a coffee break once in a while.
Yeah, we need a coffee break. Yeah.
Well, Ken, I have to say that I don't know that there's a man born in the last 20 years that would have the intestinal fortitude to do what you did. Because it takes a man to do what you did. Absolutely. And I mean, when I say a man, it takes a man. It takes a hard man to do what you did.
Yeah, man.
It don't take one of these kids that we have today.
Yeah.
they would have probably crapped their pants. It took them, and you were
in basic training. They would have crapped their pants.
well.
No way they would have made it that far.
Not as far fetched as you think.
But
Well, I appreciate that, Lynn, and it's I've relived that so many times in the years, putting the notes and things together to build my book. And in my book, it's a trade off. There is that I knew that if we continue to fight it out, we only had one more in the book. You'll see in the firefight, we were down to our last rounds. I had like 2 shots in my shotgun and my pistols, and I said, then they're going to overwhelm us. And you see in the book, as I said,
yeah,
I know we're trained with edged weapons and fight with a knife, but you don't get that training that much. And if you've never ever fought with a knife to a point where it's not like on television, you're doing a nice choreography, dance and martial arts. You're just jumping on the son of a bitch and stabbing the motherfucking hell out of them. That's all you're doing. Right. And it's going to be bloody and it's going to be mean. And then they're going to do the same to you. You're going to die. And it's what they call the dance of cold steel. And you're wondering, like, oh man, God, is that going to, where the fuck, it's going to feel terrible. But, and you're scared and you're petrified, but your training and your mission, where your mind is, you say, is there any other way out of that? And you'll see, I don't want to give everything away in the book, but you see where I am so overwhelmed with grief. And when I'm standing there talking with the other 2 Marines, again, here's the drawback is I look over and I talk about it in the book where the people had come out, the non-combatants, a couple of them had come out from back in the storage area in the freezer locker room where we were hiding them, and they came out and they overheard that, and to look at the look on the terror on their face, then it's freak them out. Is that, oh my God, I was talking to the Marines. I didn't know that they were just a few feet away and heard me. So they I kind of shit the bed there. So everything I did in that restaurant, it comes down to where some of the failures that I did with it, and that was one where you got to be cognizant of all the time of who's around. And at that kind of situation, I couldn't be. So it kind of scared the living hell out of those folks.
Well, I would say there were no failures.
Well, there's another one that I'll talk about in a second. But with it, I say, you feel like a heel because, these people shouldn't have heard that. Now they know what's coming. They know that no matter what, we're going to die. But we're going to die for them, and then they're going to die. And and they just went back inside and told the other ones that. So now, fuck, what am I gonna do? Have a riot on my hands? But the mission at the point was saying I could hear my dad talking to me, and like I said in the book, and I was very, very flustered and overwhelmed at the time. Remember, I had been sleeping in the last 24 hours. And all this adrenaline dump with all the shooting and all that, I just got off of duty. I know the other 2 guys were fresh from, sleeping all night. They were on a different watch. Anyway, with all the adrenaline dumping and whatnot. So then I went in and recomposed myself, put some cold water on my face. That's where I said the prayer, and the prayer's in the book. And, I offered myself up no matter what happens, whatever kind of miracle. I don't know how we can get out of this, whatever. Send angels down from the sky is about the only thing that's going to, save us right here. And sure as shit, because shortly thereafter, another part of that failure, right, we were talking about, makes you feel unlike a hero or, unhero-like, is where my friend Minacci steps out in front of me with a machine gun. Where when they busted through the door and they shot at me, and he's standing in front of me, and he took the blast. And we had thought we had head counted everybody. But evidently he hid in the closet. He was scared, and all the other Americans, all the non-combatants were gone. So when they kicked in the doors and we were already, defenseless and put down our weapons and we were surrendering in Farsi, the door kicked open as they came through to blast with the machine gun. He steps out of that linen closet and takes it right in the chest. If he doesn't do that, those rounds hit me. And you read the book, so you'll see. And anyway, so I drop and I'm crying and I'm holding him and he dies in my arms, right there. And that was a failure that I had not directed either of the other 2 Marines to count how many. We got a head count. These people are my responsibility. They're in my charge. And how many people we got, how many warm bodies, maybe I don't remember, but maybe I made a quiet assumption that anybody's getting a chance to get out that door is going to get the fuck out of there. We're going to be the only 3 left. Okay. And again, that's part of the failure where you say you got to weigh and measure that with what you see from what I did, and I got to live with that, and Minachi, all the time, and it's tough. It is a time from time to tough, and I don't know how many times I've had it. I've sat down, got snot drinking, commode hung and drunk, and apologized to him and say, I'm sorry. If I had made that head count, I'd have made sure that we're one short. Where the fuck is he? And got you to add here before we let the doors open. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's drawbacks that and demons that I have to deal with, all my life until my last breath. And
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of that song by that Canadian artist, the one that did the song about the Fitzgerald.
Gordon
Oh,
Lightfoot.
Gordon
Lightfoot.
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 The song about the
Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
yeah, but not that song. It was the song about the if a paperback book. If I could,
Yeah. If I could read your mind.
if I could read your mind, yeah, about the hero always fails.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
hero.
Yeah. But Ken, to
Sometimes fail. Some heroes sometimes fail.
yeah, the fact that you went up against all odds and you should have failed and you only lost one life is a testament to what a strong-willed and fighting Marine that you were. And it's a story that has to be told. And the more I think about our conversation last week, the more angry it makes me that our government set you up to fail. And it's just, and
They set themselves up to look good and to get out of a shitty situation. That's their focus. If it means that we fail or we are expendable, so be it. We are
yeah,
expendable.
but
just like
there's not,
just like they were in Benghazi, just like they
Yeah.
left them in Benghazi to rot.
And before we venture too far off this, I just want to say one thing, Ken, about your friend dying. I know nothing I say is going to heal that pain or heal that guilt that you might feel, but on the outside looking in, you were in an incredibly stressful situation, and the fact that you may not have thought about at that time how many warm bodies were around. Oh, wait a minute, let's go find him. I get into a stressful situation, and how stressful can my life be? I mean, I'm not in war, but sometimes I can't think 100% clearly. Plus the fact that you didn't get any sleep for 24 hours.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I wouldn't beat yourself up too bad about it. Now, I know my words don't mean anything, but that's from an outsider looking in on that. You know what I'm saying?
No, they do mean a lot, and I've said this before to people on some of the talks that I had, because the after decades of therapy and going through this, had this changed, and as they changed the type of therapy and the rationale that they use, to approach people that have been through first responder combat, people that have been through a lot of trauma, especially combat, several times, is that I now can focus on what it takes to get through this, some of the things that I've had to do, how I approach it. And I share that in the book with veterans and with people, not just veterans, but that's the ones I relate to most. But also some of the stressful calls and things that I've been in a police department. So at both ends of it, you got the detective and the police on the street, and shootings. I've been in shootings and fights for your life, things like that. And then again, as a combat and the veteran, I get if you want to, for the lack of anything else, the best of both worlds. And I wonder, gentlemen, you think this back in World War II, we'll pick that, is that, especially the Marines, we'll use that for an example, is that they went island hopping from Guadalcanal to Saipan to Tinian to all these different battles. Take a 30, 40, 60 days at a time. Then they go out for 2 weeks. And imagine the stress and the stuff that they went through, and then they go right back into the next island. So every third island, they were rotating these guys, and they didn't just go through one thing that I went through. They went through it 100 times that, and without being able to go home unless they were wounded or just so shell-shocked they couldn't function. But back into it again. They didn't have any idea what the post-traumatic stress was like or the impact. And how many people you know personally or in your family or you've met or heard about in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, they don't talk about it. My dad was this, my uncle, whatever. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. I could fucking understand why.
Well, my grandfather was in World War II, and I tried for many, many, many years to get him to talk about, and he would never tell me anything. I mean, he told me about the ship ride from where he got on his ship and to going through the Panama Canal, but that's all he'd ever talk about. He never would talk about he did talk a little bit about some of the things that happened. I mean, seeing his first dead Japanese and things like that, but nothing to the war that he had seen. He never would tell me how he got the sword from the Japanese soldier that he hung on his wall. I mean, a lot of things he just wouldn't talk about it.
Well, you took a look at the cover.
Yeah.
Take a look at that cover of my book, and you'll see part of that cover. And to describe that to you, that's about a couple of 100 bodies that are laying out there, and they just got shot to shit out of. I guess they were the army. Yeah, up in the corner there. Take a close look at that. Those aren't sandbags. They are human beings, and they had just been shot in a revolt against the Shah, and then the ones that weren't dead. These guys walked around and just bayoneted them as they were laying there, as they were wounded, just bayoneted them, you know? Then they backed up and they brought these kerosene trucks out, these old kerosene trucks, and they circled around them with kerosene. And then when we knew it was going to happen, just looking at it and say, oh my God, they're going to barbecue these fucking people, these poor bastards. And they did. And they torched them. And and again, anybody that's been in combat or something, dead bodies are one thing, burning dead bodies, and the ones that are not quite dead yet and crying and oh my God, shit. So the horrendous part, I had to put that in there because you see the top of the book, it says the Cayenne. That is a picture right out of their own newspaper. They're proud of it. And if you get the special edition, what I'm going to give you, Vinny, you'll see there's pictures nobody's ever seen before. And if you didn't see it,
I'm looking forward to reading it. I can't wait.
Yeah. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But it's a civil war, and it's a religious civil war, and with people's, I say, their background or their culture of being a warlike energy. Anyway, the Persian Empire. That's what you're talking about. Persians. They've been known for this for a long time.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It's been going on since the beginning of time. The war over there in the Middle East.
Yeah.
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 Well, Ken, I'm glad that you made your way to Roswell, and I'm glad that that we met. Now, I'm going to tell you a couple of really quick stories. When I first met Ken, on the very first day, Ken had a picture hanging on his bulletin board, and I said, "Ken, who's that guy hanging there?" Ken said, "That's the guy I'm going to kill when he gets out of prison."
Oh yeah.
I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "Because he's already threatened my family."
Yeah.
He said, "I put him in prison on the West Coast." And he said, "He's already threatened to kill my family when he gets out." And he said, "He's already tagged. So when he gets out of prison, I'm the first one who knows."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't, Ken, whatever happened with that guy? Is he still in prison?
Shh.
I'll have to circle around back to get out.
There you go. There you go. Ken, you need me to edit this part?
I heard a rumor that he got out on a fishing trip and fell overboard in the Pacific Ocean. But it's rumors,
Yeah. Well, from my understanding, he was a pretty bad person. So he may not even have made it outside the prison before one of his enemies got him. And that's not saying Ken. That's saying one of his street gang enemies got him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
he was bad news, and he infiltrated two different gangs and was caught having a little affair with a rival gang's mistress of the leader of that gang.
Yeah.
And they put a hit out on him too.
Yeah.
It was easy to spot who he was. He had several teardrops on both eyes. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
I sleep well at night.
from my understanding at the time, there was some pretty serious threats against Ken and his family. So, I understand Ken's concern. But several years had passed, and Ken and I had become pretty good friends. And I called Ken up one day. I had some questions about some investigations I'd been doing, and it was nothing to do with law enforcement or anything. It was just some questions that I had about some things that I had been doing. And I called Ken, and Ken said, I called him up and I said, Ken, I got some questions for you. And Ken always answered his phone for me. And if he didn't answer his phone, he always called me back there very shortly. Still today he does, no matter when I call him or anything. And then so I called Ken up, and it was in the middle of the day, Monday through Friday. I don't remember what day it was. And I called Ken up, and Ken said, I'm asshole deep in a murder right now. Can I call you back in a little bit?
Asshole deep.
And then
I'm stealing that one. That's
No, you know what? Literally, that was true. That was true.
Well, now here's
Absolutely.
the good
If you wanna
part.
know it if you want to know it on the video, I'll tell you. If you want to wait till we go to lunch, I'll tell you there. But it's
There you go.
technically,
Yeah,
literally, it's true.
But here's the good part.
Lunch.
Ken gets in his van, his CSI van, to drive back to the station, and calls me. That's how good a friend Ken is. He didn't even wait till he got off work. He gets in his van and before he ever leaves the murder scene, I guess he takes all of his, protective gear off, and he gets back in his van. Before he ever starts it up, he calls me. And he goes, hey, okay, what you got?
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. I'll never forget it.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Asshole deep.
And the sad part about that is we don't have very many murders here. Well, we didn't back then in this little town we live in here. So
No.
that was probably one of the 8 or 10 murders Ken got to see in his 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank God.
Well,
Yeah, thank God. That's right. It's more than that now. Times have changed, and it's got a lot worse. But back through the 90s and the early 2000s, we didn't have a lot of murders.
yeah.
Which was good. But those are two instances with Ken that'll always stick with me no matter what.
I love it. Yeah.
So
this was a lot of fun, guys. And this friggin' chick, man, cracks me up, man. I can't help it. And Ken, I can't wait to read your book. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to put a link to Ken Kraus's book. He is one of the original hostages that survived the hell in 1979, the Iranian hostage crisis. You have to pick up his book. We're going to put a link in the description. And if there's any Hollywood producers out there listening, you got to read the book and make a movie out of this guy. We have several casting ideas, don't we, Ken? Casting ideas to play you.
Supposedly, yeah.
And Ken's email, along with our email, will be in the description that you can just click on and send Ken an email at any time. So if you have a question for Ken,
or if you want to interview him, or something like that, or turn this story into a feature film, which holy cow does it need to be? I was telling Lynn this, Ken. This is like American Sniper, but with a happy ending. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And happy only because you survived it. That's the only reason I'm saying it's not a happy story, but it's a happy
ending. Yeah.
Happy ending because you survived.
That's why we use the word. A lot of Marines and American military go through hell. They see hell, but do they really endure it? So that when you come back home again, well, how are you going to relate to everyday life? How are you going to tell your story when people ask? Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be a hostage again when I came home, to their hatred and make them, hate anybody from the Middle East or anybody that looked like, they're of a Muslim background. They're not going to dictate terms to me in my life. This is my backyard. I survived. I endured, and I'm going to be in charge of my life. I will make decisions on my emotions and on my feelings. You don't dictate to me. Okay. It's going to be your behavior and how you act and treat the people in my country, my family, my friends, and my neighbors, that's how I'm going to treat you back. I'm not just going to walk down the street with a chip on my shoulder waiting for somebody that is dressed different than me or speaks different than me as a reason to hate. There's a lot
I
of that
love
out
that.
there, and I've seen it with veterans, and I'm active with the VFW, with the American Legion, with the DAV, and a portion of my books, by the way, goes towards helping the vets at post traumatic stress and first responders, because you just don't know what it's like for even people and firemen and things like that have to go in and pull burning babies out, and it's people that go through
Oh,
this stress
yeah,
level
no idea.
nowadays.
No idea.
They survive it, they endure it, but what do you do afterwards? How does that does that make you a drug addict? Does it make you alcoholic? Does it make you mean and beat people?
Yeah.
Those are things that for another time. But let them know that if you ever want to talk, I got resources too, and you go through my book, and if you think that I'm not qualified, then that's fine. But otherwise, if you read my book, you'll sit there and say, Ken does know what he's talking about. He does know the
Yeah.
feelings. You see everything. I don't hide anything. Everything that was good and bad that happened to me in there, the thoughts, the feelings, everything, the prayers, the miracles, they're all there. They play out for you. So you read that. If you don't like it, give me your address. I'll send you the money for the book. No questions asked.
I love that. I love it. I love it. Yes, you heard that. You heard it right from the horse's mouth, my friends. Definitely pick up his book.
And I'll be the first to tell you, I've known Ken for probably close to 30 years now. And Ken has always been straightforward, and I have never seen him treat anybody differently because of the way they look, the way they act, the way they talk, the way they dress. He's always treated everybody the same, and he's always given everybody a fair shake.
Right.
Now he will tell you how he thinks about you if you give him a reason to, but you have to give him a reason.
Yeah. Don't give him a reason. Yeah. I love it.
But Ken's always been fair with everybody that I've ever dealt with Ken with. He's always been very fair, very straight down the middle, and I've never seen him prejudge anybody ever. That's not something that you can accuse Ken of doing. And I still have to say,
when you carry a badge and a gun, or you have the authority and the mission, to protect life up into including taking life, you can't afford that. You can't afford to second guess or prejudge. You have to go with the facts. You got to go with what you know. You got to make the best of that situation, or you don't act. It's just that simple.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I was telling you last time, I've known Ken I knew him for 20 years, about 18 to 20 years before I ever knew that he was ever a Marine.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you told me.
And I mean, this is something. I mean, think about what he went through, and the suffering, and the hero that he was, and he was such a humble man that the people
Obviously,
around him
you never
didn't
came
even
out
know.
to drink with me.
For 20 years,
you never seen my bar tab.
Yeah.
Now, I did hear some stories, Ken, with some football, football leagues that you were in, where you get a little crazy now sometime.
Well, you have no witnesses. You have no video. I will challenge all authoritative resources you have, and I'll countersue.
Guys, this was a lot of fun, man. This was a lot of fun, and we're gonna put all of Ken's contact information, his website, his email. Definitely buy his book. Lynn's, if you need a detective, if you need someone to serve papers, Lynn is one of the best. We're going to put his website down there too. And thank you, Simple Funding, for sponsoring this episode. We do appreciate it. If you have any legal funding needs, please contact them. Ken, thank you so much, sir. It was an honor meeting you. I look forward to seeing you and having lunch and discussing this project, man.
Absolutely.
And just chilling with you, man. It would be cool just to chill with you. And Lynn, I'll talk to you soon, my brother.